When you think dangerous first-class monsters, the thing that comes to your head, without a doubt, will be the myth, the legend, the Fatalis. This is, and was, the originator of the very idea that is the Black Dragon. Appearing first in Monster Hunter on the PlayStation 2 in 2004 as a monster that was exclusively to the online gathering hub, if it was just this, it would be simple to talk about. But it's not simple at all. So let's start talking about item descriptions. From the helm to the boots, the item descriptions go as this. Like an old fresco, this featherweight armor is a masterpiece of power. Power that is discomforting. The instant it is worn, the lust for darkness reigns. Black armor holding rays of sun. Each crack is a life of the fallen. The longer you use it, the more you feel the armor's spirit take control of you. Mysterious armor darker than black. The footprints are of suspicious design. This item description, besides being the absolute peak of thematic writing, leads into a theory people have had for a long time, which is one of the presumed ways this thing keeps coming back, and the presumed ways in question get rather interesting. Starting with the most basic, you have a quest line in 4th Ultimate that by the end of it, you have a question if a Crimson Fatalis just hatched in a volcano. There's a second theory on the basis using an in-universe hypothesis held by Wyverian scholars that it just comes from another dimension. I'm not joking, that's an actual in-universe hypothesis. Then you have one that is hilariously the most explained. It is the idea that it regenerates from the Fatalis item that is carved from its corpse, called Fatalis's evil eye. And scientifically, if Fatalis is a supercell organism, this is entirely possible. But if you thought this was the last one, no, I saved the funniest one for last. There was once an old standing theory from a mix of old lore based on the previously given item description that comes from Monster Hunter Freedom, which was on the PSP, that if the wearer wears the armor and uses the weapon of the weapon made from the corpse of the slayed Fatalis, it will possess the body of the user and the wearer and eventually take over their body, becoming the next Fatalis. I will not lie, this has spawned plenty of memes, and those memes are funny, but just for confirmation, the possession method of regeneration is not canon as far as I can find, because for all of my research, this comes from a wiki page that has since been changed to state that the way it regenerates is from the Fatalis Crimson Eye, and therefore I can't find actual proof to this credence of the possession, besides maybe one old ecology book hinting at it, but that's, again, just a theory in the ecology book. Now, the most possible hypothesis is probably the regeneration from the eye, or, hilariously enough, the in-game hypothesis from the Wyverian scholars, which is it just comes from another universe. Because, hilariously enough, in a 5th generation ecology book, there was a paragraph posted by Gaijin Hunter in which he did a rough translation of it, where it stated that the hypothesis of the Wyverian scholars just might be true, and he linked it to potentially the movies, but in all reality, it's probably linked more to Frontier than anything, but that's here, there, and that's hearsay. Now, I make it a point that each dragon in the Dangerous First Class or Forbidden Monster classification does not exist as a traditional Elder Dragon, in which traditional Elder Dragons can be described as aspects of living nature, while forbidden monsters or Dangerous First Class dragons exist as aspects of reality, therefore existing somewhat perpetually. And if I were to describe Fatalis as an aspect of reality, it would be the aspect of death, destruction, or the very embodiment of absolute desolation. This concept doesn't just apply to Fatalis, so I'm not pulling it out of thin air. You can apply it to Alatreon, is the embodiment of elements, the elements of water, fire, thunder, dragon, even. Dire Morales is quite literally a walking tectonic plate. That's just what he is. Meanwhile, Safi and Zoe, well, Safi is the next topic, funny enough. So let's start talking about Safi then. Monster Hunter World Iceborne introduced us to a new being known as Safi'jiiva at the end of low rank within the base game, and it was not until master rank with Iceborne when the speculation from the Wyverian ecologist upon the death of Safi'jiiva was confirmed. Deep within the secluded valley exists the home of growing bioenergy. Now lies the aged, rugged, and far more angry Safi'jiiva, the much more teenage state of Safi'jiiva. According to the Iceborne ecology books that were put out, it's still not fully grown, but is in effect a teenager. Not fully grown, but getting there. This means Safi is nowhere near the point of its final form, and I don't think reminding is needed that this fight was designed to be a siege that took 2 weeks to do, with every hunter going in and out of battle until Safi was drained of energy to the point it can be killed. When speaking of theme, the story, and overall gameplay, the siege is great, but then you think more about how this dragon was born from nothing but energy, and how that energy just exists, meaning no matter what, it will come back to life as a new Safi'jiiva from the death of the growing Safi'jiiva. In simple terms, you're just kicking the can down the road for the next hunters to deal with it. Now, if the crisis of an immortal dragon that by killing it only makes it come back as a baby that will grow up to be a threat again is not concerning enough, it should be known that it was Safi'jiiva that was marked as a dangerous first class, meaning even at the point of just hatching, it was seen as a threat so dangerous by the hunters of the New World it could destroy a nation. Additionally, its more mature form of Safi, according to the ecology books, was meant to be on par with Fatalis when you read the Dev Notes section. Bluntly, for all we know, the fully grown form just might be on par with White Fatalis, who was just a very old and much more powerful variant of the base Fatalis. Ultimately, I think the only dragon that could fight Zoshia and completely kill it must be whatever the final form of Safi will take, because Safi is the only dragon besides Arkfeld that has shown the capabilities of completely devouring innate bioenergy, leaving behind a wake of barren desolation and destruction, and then turning the absorbed bioenergy into usable power capable of evaporating matter with just an attack known as Sapphire of the Emperor. A question must be asked and answered now with everything I've just said. That is, if Fatalis is a dragon that represents the end, and Elatrian represents the embodiment of the elements, then it's apt to say that Safi represents raw energy itself. This monster is born from the raw power of dead elder dragons. You kill it, and it provides its own energy needed for its own rebirth. And there are 2 total cocoons burned by Elatrian in the secluded valley, meaning it either had kids or it came back more than once. You cannot destroy energy, only change its shape, and Safi fits the bill of cannot destroy, only change its shape, meaning, bluntly, I don't think you can permanently get rid of Safi or Safi'jiivas in the world of Monster Hunter, because they are just going to reincarnate themselves. Now, before moving on, I have a fun fact to mention. 5th generation Monster Hunter World Iceborne introduced a new Elatrian fight, and that fight was in the same place, canonically, you killed the most recent Safi. The reason this fight takes place in the secluded valley is because Elatrian decided it was a good idea to fly over an ocean, over a continental landmass, only land on a small island that is the guiding lands with the intent to fight Safi to the death. I don't think I need to say this, but the answer is Safi would have won. This is not for debate, because the ability to absorb bioenergy, which is what makes up the elemental energy Elatrian uses, along with it can point-blank Sapphire the Emperor right into Elatrian's face, after it is pinned down due to the Elytrean size, and again, I think it's poignant to mention, Sapphire the Emperor can literally melt and evaporate material just to thin air. With all this said, we can talk about Xochitl with a side of me being an absolute nerd. This freak of a monster is on par with some flowers in terms of immortality. Here's a cutscene post-fight in hard rank that explains even if a tiny bit remains, it can repropagate.
おかえり。みんな無事でよかったよ。
ああ、お疲れさん。これで俺もまだあれを調査できる。
でもなぜゾシアが復活を？
僕なりに考えていたことがあってね。今回の情報を合わせて考えると、おそらくは無性生殖にも似た自己増殖。今のところはそう考えるのが良さそうだね。
つまり特定の細胞がわずかでも残っていれば、そこから再び生体になりうると。
エネルギーが供給され続ける限りか。まさに竜との切り札。大したもんだ。
故にやはり竜とをあのまま放置することには疑問が残る。正直に言えばな。
懸念はわかる。だがそうした困難も含めて息づいているのがこの土地なのだろうと思う。
それを崩さぬよう目を配ることもまた責務というわけか。
そう、だから俺たちがいる。ほら、俺もたまにはらしいこと言うだろ。
それにゾシア再生にもまだ謎が多い。竜頭を含めての監視と調査は継続したい。もちろん私たちも協力します。森人や耳の方にも協力を仰ぎながら。
分かった。皆で見守っていこう。今はそれが最善の選択だ。
Now, what was described is called parthenogenesis, or if you're not a science nerd, the ability to reproduce offspring that are genetic clones of themselves. This is found in very few snakes and commonly in flowers. The flower comparison is quite apt because flowers, as long as they have a viable root, can regrow. It does not matter how much is left as long as it has a viable root to repropagate. And when I say repropagate, I mean it can repropagate entire fields. The reason I bring this up is purely because it adds context. Context not just to Xochitl, but also the Guardians in general, because when you look at how Safi and even Arkfeld draw energy from its surroundings, the two leave wakes of death, destruction, and barren land, but when Zo and the Guardians draw energy, it does not leave a wake of death and destruction. This idea of not leaving behind a wake of death and destruction for the Guardians doesn't apply to Arkfeld as stated, giving you a direct appeal thematically and design-wise that the Guardian construct monsters exist almost in perfect symbiosis with nature and the Wilk as a substance. I can already see someone going, well, if snakes can do it, then that means it's not a flower. Well, the thing is, snakes need to at least be alive to reproduce offspring through parthenogenesis, while flowers only need a viable root, and Xochitl is closer to that of only needing a viable root to repropagate again. The reason I come to this speculation is because, in all honesty, it's not actually hard to grow meat and complicated protein strands like you would a flower in nature. To achieve this, all you really need is to have the base stem cell and a nutrient supplement. The nutrient supplement's already covered by the Wilk, seeing it's able to sustain life of the Guardian monsters, and is used in the creation process of them, meaning all you need is the base stem cell. Where that might be is in the cocoon itself. We have confirmation that the bioenergy in Monster Hunter can be used to create life via the monsters of Safi'jiiva and Safi'jiiva. So it's not a far stretch to say that the cocoon is made of dried Wilk strands and the monster's stem cells. Then it's combined with liquid Wilk pumped into it, providing the nutrient supplement until the monster is fully grown, therefore giving you a fully grown Guardian monster, and in the case of Xochitl, a monster that constructually is very similar to what I can describe as a supercell organism, and I have to quickly describe what that is. A supercell organism is a being made up of a bunch of singular cells in which each cell contains the very processes needed to actually sustain life itself, meaning it has the ability to produce its own energy, produce its own nutrients, and produce its own means of byproduct outside and needing to exhaust itself. In essence, the easiest way to put it is imagine a cell that contains all your organs as a human in one. Therefore, a bunch of those cells combine into a singular entity, and if you cut a limb off of that entity, the entity can just regrow itself because the cell that is the supercell that is made up of this entity is capable of regrowing the limb by simply replicating the singular cells that are used to make up this entity. It's a lot more complicated than that, and if you want a good explanation of that, I recommend go watching Roanoke Gaming. He's done a few movie breakdowns where he actually explains how supercells work on a proper biological level. I'm not a biologist, and I don't want to go through the full explanation of them because it's a very long-winded explanation, or particularly this video in hand. If you want to have that conversation, I'm more than willing to on stream, because that gives us better time to talk and more time to functionally speak with each other. But as of now, I am officially out of things to say regarding these three and how they have the ability to come back to life as dragons. If you wanted me to cover things like Alatreon and or Dire Moralis, there is not enough for me to cover, as the lore on those monsters and or story on those monsters is not enough expanded upon, either because the games don't contain enough context or because the ecology books don't contain enough context. I understand this is probably not the video everyone expected, but after seeing how Zoe came back to life after being slain the first time with Title Update 1 in Monster Hunter Wilds, it had me going full conspiracy theory on how that type of regeneration is scientifically possible if you had a supercell organism mixed with some type of standard science that we currently have based on artificial meat production in the lab-grown setting. While on the matter of Fatalis, it has been covered to death already, so I do apologize if you wanted more, but there really isn't much to say. Besides, there are various theories on how it comes back to life and how it doesn't come back to life. It's a very dead, beaten topic at this point. Now, with conversations over, I thank you all for watching, and I thank you, Boss Fight Database, for having the video footage I needed in regards of Safi'jiiva, in regards to Fatalis, and regards to the intro of Zoshia, because I was unable to get those myself. The link to that channel is down below. Now, with everything said, thank you for watching. God bless and stay safe.